In the mid-20th century, American men were cast into a specific societal mold. They were expected to be the primary breadwinners and head of household, strong, assertive, and resilient. This model of manhood was reinforced in every aspect of society, from family life to education, from the workplace to popular culture. Men's induction into and experiences from World War II in the 1940s strengthened this model of masculinity, presenting an image of a man as a warrior, a protector, a hero. In the post-war years, men's support fraternal organizations flourished, providing spaces for men to congregate, share experiences, and build strong bonds. These institutions sought to cultivate well-rounded and healthy men, reinforcing the societal image of an assertive, resilient man. They provided an opportunity for young men migrating to urban centers to be propped up and supported by their fellow men. Through such organizations, men trained and socialized men to live and succeed authentically, according to end goals defined themselves. In this way, men acted as a cohesive group and that propped up and supported their own. The 1960s ushered in a significant transformation, bringing change in the societal structures that once sustained male camaraderie and mentorship. What had previously been a solid network of fraternal organizations, support systems, and social groups tailored to men's needs began to fragment and disintegrate. As the feminist movement gained momentum, many of its advocates began to target men's exclusive spaces, arguing that these were remnants of an antiquated patriarchy that served to perpetuate gender inequality. They proposed that, in order to level the playing field, women should gain access to these traditionally male-exclusive spaces, where men would congregate, share experiences, and support one another. Over time, through activism and litigation in women's drive for access to these spaces, these organizations were systematically dismantled. The 1970s presented another layer of complexity with the enactment of Title IX and the parallel rise of sexual identity politics. The latter introduced categorizations for men based on new sexual identities, terms and concepts that had not existed before the late 19th century and didn't enter common usage until this pivotal decade. Consequently, men found themselves divided into groups based on these manufactured identities, no longer a unified front with common needs but instead split into two factions, including one that was expected to conform to a stringent behavioral code to avoid association with the other group. This dynamic instilled a pervasive fear of stigmatization and alienation, affecting all men. With men's support networks weakened and with men divided based on newly invented sexual identities, the feminist movement succeeded in compromising the foundation of men's power, the ability of men to socialize men according to principles of authentic masculinity, or in words, masculinity defined by men rather than by women. By dismantling gendered spaces and deploying a divide-and-conquer strategy, women forced a shift in perception. Instead of viewing men's sexuality as a spectrum of activity inherent to all men, it became an identity, leading to an internalized fear in men of being associated with the wrong sexual identity group. This subsequently prevented men from forming authentic relationships with their peers. American men consequently altered their associations and everyday behaviors for fear of this stigmatization. Men were progressively atomized, becoming distant and disconnected from each other. Often today the term toxic masculinity is tossed around as a way to describe undesirable male behaviors, but by looking below the surface and historically we can see the source of behaviors such as bullying and behavioral self-policing are not inherent to men but instilled fears. Socialized to avoid social stigmatization, by bullying and self-policing one another, men are communicating the desire to be, or not be, associated with a specific sexual identity group. Men who behave in such a way want to be seen as part of the useful to women group and not the other group. In other words, because men have been socialized to prop up women rather than themselves, such behaviors ultimately have their source in the feminist movement. They exist to serve women's interests. So-called toxic masculinity is, in fact, toxic feminism. How can we return to a world of authentic masculinity in which men live out self-actualized lives on their own terms and are not shackled by complex rules of behavior which cause them to act out, bully, self-police, and live out a life of fear and anger? This entails a major rethink, both in terms how men are socialized and in terms of how we view men's sexuality. There are two key changes, or exit doors, that could lead us back to a world of authentic masculinity. Exit door number 1. Firstly, Men must once again find ways to support their own gender and have the opportunity to socialize younger men according to a set of standards for authentic masculinity established by men, not by women. If women continue to be the definers of masculinity, masculinity will never be authentic. It will be imposed with end goals that are incompatible with men's natures and serve others' interests. Exit door number 2. Secondly, men must unite to form a cohesive group, acting collectively. By rejecting manufactured sexual identities which amount to useful to women or not useful to women, men's sexuality must be viewed as a spectrum of sexual behavior, not an identity, which is inherent and common to all men. In other words, whether a man is sexually active with men or women or both is irrelevant. What is relevant is his gender, and that all men are included in this shared identity. Once these shifts occur, a return to the authentic American masculinity of yesteryear is possible. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video. Let us know your thoughts.
Four bones.
Much obliged you hopped on board for this snazzy trip through American life in the 1940s and 1950s, all captured through nifty vintage photographs. If this flick's got your motor running, don't be a square. Click on that jolly bucket of bolts to subscribe to the channel for more top drawer content just like this.